Hi, today let's talk tassels. Tassels are one of my favorite little accessories that you can add to all sorts of different jewelry. So sometimes you get little teeny tiny ones on our bracelets. I'd like to have these like little necklaces with these tiny little tassels. Great accessory for layering. Bring it in with a bunch of chains and some pendants. And sometimes we add our tassels onto our malas. And I also like to use them just as accessories. Sometimes we will create these little pom-poms, add little tassels to the end. They make great little keychains. I have another video where I can show you how to make the little pom-poms. And you can also use it for different types of home decor. So here, with some of my macrame, I've added in a few little tassels here. Also just playing around. This one not quite finished yet, but making the idea of different tassels as part of a wall hanging. So great thing about tassels is that you can use all sorts of different mediums. So the little tiny tassels that we're going to talk about today, I've used just basic sewing thread to create these. You can either use the really silky kind, or we've got just your basic sewing thread here. The other great way to make tassels is embroidery floss. And embroidery floss, if you get some of the shiny silky stuff. I don't like it quite as much because you will notice that it tends to do some curling and likes to unravel itself a little bit. There's some fancier types of embroidery flosses you can get that make some really beautiful, nice heavy-duty tassels. To show you how to do these with the cord that goes in, I'm going to have another video that demonstrates those. And you can also just use yarn. So here are some made out of yarns. I find these are really great for little kitty cat toys. Our little cat Benny loves chasing a tassel, especially when you put it on a super long string. So if you're ready, let's get started. So the supplies we're going to need today are some sewing thread, a sharp pair of small scissors, I like the embroidery scissors, a needle, and some cardboard. So here we have small little tassel. So we're going to make one about the same size. So we can use the either silky sewing thread or the regular sewing thread. So here I'm using the basic sewing thread. I'm going to place it over top of my cardboard, which I have cut into the size about the length of the tassel that I would like. So here, wrapping it around probably 40-50 times, trying to get it to the bulk that I am looking for. Now that we finished wrapping, we're going to add an O-ring to the top of our tassel. So here I'm using a pair of pliers to pick up our O-ring. We're going to use 2 pairs of pliers to open up that O-ring. So holding one side with the pair of pliers, opening the others. And instead of pulling it apart, I like to pull them sideways. So now we're going to thread the little O-ring, which is often not quite as easy as it looks, onto the thread. So making sure that we got all of them, pulling that O-ring up towards the top and then getting it closed. I like to do this on the cardboard before we have finished making the tassel, just make sure that we get all of the different threads. And once that is closed, then we are going to trim. Now we're going to start creating the top of the tassel. So getting a piece of thread, maybe about 16 inches long, you're going to fold it in half, lining up the one end. You're going to wrap it around the top, and we're going to create a lark's head hitch knot. So placing it along the back, we're going to bring the one end, slide it through the loops, and then we're going to pull it tight. From there, we're going to wrap it around the top of the tassel. Usually I like to wrap it about 10 or 15 times in. Once you've completed the wrapping, you're going to get your needle, making sure that it has an eye that's big enough to be able to hold both pieces of thread. Sometimes you'll have to trim the little ends down just so that you can get them to go through the eye of the needle, and you're going to get that threaded through. And the reason that we're going to be using a needle is instead of creating a knot at the top of our tassel tie off, that we are going to take this thread and we're going to bring it back down and through all of those wraps that we just did that we have stacked there. So I'm starting at the top, placing the needle in, pushing it down and through. Sometimes I like to use a pair of pliers to help pull it all the way through. Just it's a little difficult sometimes to grab the needle with your fingers. Then pulling the needle all the way through and then pulling the thread nice and tight. Once we have it all nice and tight, we're going to trim any loose hairs off all the way at the end, making it nice and flush. And there you have it, beautiful little mini tassel.